Morning, everybody. Welcome to another Bierer hosted ECOS Electric Culture Safety Webinar 022 with me, Mr. Lito Wilkins. He's going to be speaking about an awesome subject that you guys would want to keep for your safety archives forever and ever. He's with the International Line Builders, NorCal. Just a recap on ECOS. Mr. David McPeak with Incident Prevention. He's a Director of Professional Development with Incident Prevention. He'll be coming here in June on the 14th and speaking at 8 a.m. He's going to be talking about the art of safety. So we're looking forward to him coming on by. Also, Incident Prevention for all speakers. They do offer the 5 CUSP points, Certified Utility Safety Professional, continuing educational hours. All speakers will be receiving that. In the future, near future, from now on, when folks get on board, if they are certified utility safety professionals, what they're going to be doing is they will also receive credit hours of continuing education, CUSP points, when they are with the Certified Utility Safety Professional program. All right, so he'll be coming by. Just email me at safetytraining at bieremeters.com. Email me, and if you request any past episodes, Mr. Lito was here last year in April for 003. Yeah, My Shocking Awakening. Awesome share. He came off of a personal incident, and now he's obviously a safety professional, and that incident helped push him there. So, Lito, you're going to enjoy this today with him. Known him for a couple of years now, and he is very passionate and very serious about keeping his line crew safe. And he's coming here and sharing, and he's very passionate about sharing so your line crew stays safe as well. So just introduce Mr. Lito Wilkins. Thank you, sir.
Planning for emergencies. This one came from an accident. Off of my accident in 2015 was one of the findings that I personally took. Had a hard time taking that we kind of missed a step in here. We did plan, and ultimately we thought we were ready, but looking back, we weren't ready at all. And I go out and visit crews, and when I do, I do tailboard reviews. A lot of the time, the tailboard is or the emergency action plan on that tailboard is not good enough. Sometimes it's a carbon copy of the last job site or job sites before. And essentially what we want to do is we don't plan on somebody getting hurt, but in the event that somebody does get hurt, we want to ensure that we provide them with the best possible chance of survival. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So going back to 2015, I shared my incident in 003. But I'll just give a high-level review of it. Working on the 500 kV structures here. We were doing bare hand work. Got to the job site, flew out to from the LZ to the job site, recognized an additional hazard that wasn't identified prior to the tailboard that morning. And what it was an OPGW fiber optic wire going overhead. Usually it just skips towers, and keeps going. Well, this one had a vertical run that went down below the bridge of the tower. So we're in a bare hand project, and we're calling for grounds from the tower so we can ground this OPGW. We've worked with OPGW before, but not in that configuration. So we called for one grounded one of the runs going down the tower, and I needed to go past one of the runs, and essentially got locked up on that tower for a good 30 seconds or so, bled off the induction 4 or 5 times until I was able to swing myself into the tower. I had to swing myself into the tower because I wasn't fall protected, and this was just after 100% fall protection came out. So I learned a lot about my accident, but what I want to talk about today is that emergency plan that we had. This is the device, the splice box here, and the pot heads below symbolize the fact that that jacket around the OPGW that carries the induction is separate. So one run was grounded, and the other run was not grounded, and that was the one that I got in contact with. I should not be here. today. And so that's why I share this, so that nobody else has to go through what I went through to learn these things. So the emergency action plan. That day we stood together as a team, brothers. We've been working together since our apprenticeship, so many years. We've been a line crew in transmission for about 4 years at that time, so we know how we work together. So we had a detailed tailboard. Supervisor was on site, foreman was there. Our plan was we were working with a helicopter, that the helicopter was going to be our rescue. Pull the guy off the tower, and then we would use the helicopter to transport the injured employee to the hospital. That didn't go that way. And so essentially what ended up happening was we got me back to the LZ. I felt okay. There was the pain from my muscles being tensed up. Other than that, I felt okay, and I think that was a lot of that was the shock and the adrenaline rush that I had. I couldn't realize what it was that what was going on with my body, and I didn't really want to submit to being injured that day. I wanted to just continue on and not be the one that stopped the job. After some convincing that I needed to go to the hospital, we decided to put me in the pickup truck, the supervisor's pickup truck, and we took this 58-minute drive from where we were to the nearest hospital. Now, this would have been a 16-minute flight for us had we taken a helicopter, but we chose the pickup truck for some reason. Still don't know why we went that route, but what we're finding out is a lot of people respond differently when an emergency happens, especially if it's something extreme like you see a brother go down or a brother get hurt. So we never know how somebody's going to respond to that. So that's why we have to plan and talk about these things. Here's another view of an additional hazard by taking that drive. Those red spots there were dead cell service areas. So we were already in a dead cell service area. We drove into cell service and then back out of cell service with somebody who took thousands of volts of electricity, essentially from this. I had an exit wound in my left hand or left foot, so it came across my body. Not knowing anything about what's going on, we didn't hook me up to a AED or anything like that. Just took me and drove me to the hospital. Who's to say that something could have happened to me on the way? And then my supervisor stuck with me in the truck, trying to resuscitate me, not having cell service to get EMS on site where we were at that time. So these are all considerations that need to be taken into place every job site that you go to, not just one time and it works for every job site, because every job site is different. So as I analyzed all the things that the factors that played into my accident, and I started looking at emergency action plans, I started looking at other people's emergency action plans. And at that time I was still with the utility, so I was working with a lot of contractors. And I had the unfortunate event of investigating a fatality by one of our contractors. And the first thing that I noticed when I got there was their access to the job site. The crew was working that day. There was a helicopter on site working other locations, but this crew hiked in hand over hand up a steep bank to get to their job site, and then the helicopter was flying material and stuff to them. The crew was doing their work, and unfortunately 2 employees fell 60 feet. One of them was banged up pretty bad. The other one managed to get up and assist as much as he could with the rescue of his fallen brother. They called EMS, which was their plan. A life flight helicopter showed up, didn't have hoist capability, landed down by the road where the trucks were parked, and their access to the job location was. And it's unfortunate that more attention wasn't paid to that, because the EMS personnel that showed up that day were not in physical condition to rescue this employee. So it took a long time to get to him. As you can see, the white area down below, there is where the helicopter landed, where the crew trucks were parked. EMS was down there, and this little rope that you see is what they used to access that area. At the top of the hill, it was about another 50 yards to the job site. And so the employee unfortunately didn't make it, and in my opinion, I believe that he probably would have not had made it with the severity of his injuries, falling 60 feet. But at the end of the day, when we lose a brother, we want to be able to look in their family's eyes and tell them that we did the best that we could. That we really talked about it, that we had a plan. That way, if something happens, we're covered. We can ensure that at least we tried our hardest to get them to where they needed to be. This one really hit me hard once I started looking into it. It really made me start looking at what we do at the utility, and then also at the contractor that I'm at currently. So I started working with looking for options for rescue in our area. We have the Sheriff Department has a search and rescue team that has high angle rescue. We have not had to reach out to them yet, but the California Highway Patrol also has helicopters stationed throughout the state that are available for rescue, and they do have hoist operations. So I started working with the CHP, building a relationship with them, doing training with them, and working on how do we best utilize you guys for our types of rescue. So when we think about that incident that I shared, that was only 50 yards in from the bank. Sometimes we're hiking for a lot further than that to get to the job site. So, looking at all possible options for rescue, I always start with a helicopter if we can. But what if that day is a storm day and we don't have the ability to get a helicopter in? What if the helicopter's not available? It's already on another rescue. So we need to have a second plan, a third plan sometimes, to back ourselves up. The CHP is really good about this. I mean, we already pay for it in our taxes, so it's not something that you have to worry about, getting charged at the end of the day or whatever. But they come out. This is at our one of our big transmission yards here. I rounded up all our guys, and we did a mock rescue of one of the employees just to run them through what it would look like when something went down. And to get them familiarized with the equipment that the CHP uses, because on all of our helicopter trailers we have a Stokes litter, and we have the bridles and everything that we can use to hoist an employee in a Stokes litter under a helicopter that we use for long line work. But the CHP takes it one step further. They have a bag that you throw down that the Stokes litter goes in, and then you hoist up from that bag. And so getting them out there, getting their hands on it, getting them familiar with how all this works, not only for us, but for the CHP, that they're confident when they come to our job site, they know that we're ready. Like that training day there, I was the one that did the hookup on the employee, and they didn't even second guess the fact that, or wonder, does he know what he's doing? Does he know how to hook up? Because we've worked with them so much. I have them coming out on the 31st. I have 120 line employees, field employees, that we're doing a safety stand down day, and we're going to do another mock rescue just to keep it refreshed. We're going to talk about exercising and practicing these things, because it's very important. The more we practice, the better we are if something does go down. You don't want the first time you're having to rescue somebody be your practice time. So using the CHP, I had a contractor when I was still at the utility. Superintendent for a contractor called me and said, "Hey, we just had a gentleman. They hiked into their job location up above the powerhouse. It was a steep incline hike. He stepped on an old tree stump or tree, and it crushed under his weight, and he ended up breaking his leg. And so here we're talking about a 250, 280 pound big guy up on a cliff. The guys aren't going to be able to hike him out. He can't walk under his own pressure. So he said, we've called EMS. It took them 50 minutes to get here, and I'll show you kind of the area that they were working in. Very, very remote. It's called Hellhole. It's the right name for the place. But this was the steep incline. The powerhouse is down there at the bottom, and they were just doing, simple tags, retentioning storm guys, stuff like that. So they weren't really planning on being on the wire or doing anything crazy. They got up to that location there, and that's where it happened. And they called EMS, and unfortunately, it takes a long time to get to Hellhole. It takes roughly an hour, and from our Auburn yard, where our transmission yard is, it's I think 37 miles as the crow flies, and it takes 2 hours from that yard. So from the nearest spot where EMS is located, it's about an hour. It took them 50 minutes to get there, and he said the only problem is they don't know how to get to our employee. We can't get him down. And so I said, I'm going to hang up with you. I'll give you a phone number. I'll text you a phone number. I want you to call it. It's the CHP. Give them the coordinates of the location what you're working at, and they'll send a helicopter, if available, to get your guy out of there. I hung up the phone, and 25 minutes later, the supervisor called me back and said, hey, thanks so much. Our employee's on the way to the hospital right now. So it only took 25 minutes for them to go get this employee, rescue him, stabilize him, and rescue him. And I think the really cool thing was the timing was excellent on that part. The training helicopter and then the helicopter for our local division there were both doing training. They were already flying. They were doing rescue practice over by a nearby lake. So they were already in the air, and they pulled both those helicopters off training, and both helicopters went to the site to do this rescue. I wanted to understand how it went after this happened. I wanted to know, okay, so we've been working so hard. We finally used you guys. How did it go? So I met with the CHP the next day at their headquarters, and they have GoPros all over the camera, or all over the helicopter. So they were able to share a little footage of the accident, or the rescue. So this is after they've already sent a paramedic down to stabilize him. He's coming up in the second ship to go to the hospital. They've got an IV in him, and they've splinted his leg. So as they're turning the helicopter here, I just want you to recognize one thing in the background as it's banking. You'll see the dark clouds on the horizon there. There's so many things to take into consideration when we're making our plans, right? That was a thunderstorm that was due to hit that area, and so the CHP was racing to get there to beat that thunderstorm and get out of that area before it got there. Something to think about when you're making these plans. The weather, is that going to be an issue? Like I said, you know, if it's bad weather day, are you going to have that option of the helicopter? You're going to have to go to your plan B or your plan C or whatever. So this was really a good opportunity for us to talk about this, right? And I said, so how did it go for you guys? And they were excited to share. It was an awesome. It couldn't have gone any better than it did. And then the paramedic that went down on the hoist. So the CHP uses steel hoist, steel cable on their hoist, and he said, "Is there any reason why I'd be getting shocked when I got lowered down to the guys?" And I said, "You know, I think there's a few hundred thousand reasons why you got shocked that day. You know, and we're used to it, but." That right where he lifted the employee, there was an energized 230 circuit on one side and an energized 60 kV circuit on the other side, and they lift him from between them. And so, yeah, he was dealing with a lot of induction coming off of that. It's something that linemen, you know, we deal with it every day. We actually, some guys enjoy it, but he did not like it, and he made it known. I don't want to deal with that again. And so it really made me think about, you know, not only how are we getting people in and out, but how are we keeping our rescue safe? How are we making it safe for them to get in and out of our job sites? You know, so with that one in particular, it was really hard because that circuit is literally a swath in the trees. There's really nowhere we can get them outside that right away. And outside the induction zone of those circuits. And so that's what we want to try to do, is get as far away from the circuit as we can if we can move the guy to get the hoist operations outside of that. But what we ended up doing was we ended up coming in with all of the CHP helicopter crews, sitting down with them and giving them a class on induction and working around electricity, flying around electricity, because it's important that they know if they're coming into our job site, they need to have some sort of idea of what they're getting themselves into, and maybe, you know, expecting a little bit of buzz on the line might be expected. So moving on, I wanted to talk about something that I put together to help my guys kind of just remember everything that we need to cover, and most of it's stuff that I've already talked about, but I came up with this acronym. Yes, another acronym to think about, another acronym to remember. But I think this one's really important because it's really going to help our guys understand everything that they need to cover to get our hurt employee out to safety. It's escape, egress, site characteristics, communication, access, position, and exercise. Exercise would be practicing. And I'm going to cover each of these separately as we go on. I ended up building, so we used to have magnetic placards that we put on the side of the truck, and it covered some of these items. But magnetic placards that are about this big are really hard for our crews to take out to the job site. And most of the time we're working wood poles and there's trees in the area. There's no truck bins to put a magnetic sign on the side of, right? So a laminated card with all the information. This is the way that we ended up going. This works really well because on a job site where their truck is still there, they can put this on the dash of the truck right next to their emergency gear, their first aid kit, their trauma kit, their AED. So it's there. So when they go to grab their first aid kit, they can grab this too and start going through their emergency action plan that they've put together. We worked with, and a lot of the times we found some issues with dry erase pens. Dry erase pens do not like the sun, and they bake onto everything that they sit in, right? And so doing some testing, I found that the China marker by Sharpie, this is a Sharpie Pro China marker, it's basically a grease pencil. Find them on Amazon. That's where I get these. Works the best. It erases really well, and you can utilize it for a while. After a while, this starts getting gummed up. Super easy $3 thing to swap out and get another one. Very important tool to have. So I want to go through each section of the emergency action plan placard that I put together, so we can discuss each of the letters of escape. First one would be egress, and we want to ask ourselves, how did we get here? Or how are we going to get out? How are we getting out of here? You want to outline details. If we hiked in, how is help getting to us, and how are we going to get our guy out? So those are you want to think about how are we getting out here. And I have some job site pictures. We could talk more about this when we get to the end of the presentation. The next one, so this is that section on the back sheet. I gave plenty of room so the guys can write all kinds of notes on how we're getting out. The next one, site characteristics. What can hinder our rescue or evacuation? What's going to get in our way? Did we go through gates? Are the gates locked? So then it makes you think. Okay, so we need to make sure when we call EMS and send them in here, we need to send a guy to man those gates and help get them through the gates. Follow the cones. Any of those things that we use all the time. Place the cone at turn. Just follow the cones in, so that when we are calling EMS and we're using our placard, we have a script right here to follow. This is how we got in. This is our plan to get them out. And these are the things that we need to consider. Like we need to make sure that we've covered everything so that we can get our employee out to safety. And that goes in the second section on the back side of the page. First one at the top of the page, communication. How are we going to communicate to our emergency out, right? And so we work in Northern California. There's a lot of remote areas that we work in. We don't have cell service, and I know that's the case for a lot of you out there. So we looked around and tried to find the best possible way to communicate to emergency personnel. And what we ended up purchasing was the Garmin InReach Explorer Plus for each of our foremen. So every crew has one of these in Northern California, and I believe all of our divisions they're in International Line Builders. This is a great tool. It's not used enough, and you know, I've been working on this this presentation to get the word out about emergency action plans, and have a plan to help my guys really understand this tool. The great thing about this tool is you don't have to. It's just GPS, right? And it has the moving map on it and all that. But you can Bluetooth it to your phone. And once you Bluetooth it to your phone, you don't even need to hold this anymore. You just put it on your hip, put it in your backpack or whatever, and then you can work everything from here. So you can text your supervisor if something goes wrong, or if you can text message back and forth clearance if you have no service. Hey, we're on the line, go ahead and ground, you know, whatever. So you have communication. It's a possibility here. The other thing that I really like about this tool is the SOS button. So with the SOS button, if it's something really bad and you know you need help right now, just hold that button down, and it sends a message to Garmin's emergency center, and from there they dispatch help. But at the same time, while they're dispatching everything to come your way, they don't know what you have going on yet. They just know you need help. So they're starting to dispatch everything to your location, which they have because you have GPS. They're sending text messages to you to get updates. So you can have another employee, or if it's the foreman that's running this or whoever, sitting on the phone, you know, hey, this is what happened. This is what his injuries are. They can relay back to you anything that you can possibly do for the person right now. They can also talk about, you know, you can start saying, hey, you know, this is where we need a helicopter. This guy, we have to have a hoist-capable helicopter to get this guy out of here. You're not going to even be able to hike in. That's how we got it. There's plenty of sites out there where the only way to access it is helicopter. So great tool. That's what we use. We fortunately haven't, in emergency cases, haven't had to use this yet, but we have it. It's there for our guys. I get on the account every once in a while and see that they're actually using it to talk about the job site stuff, clearance stuff, and things like that. So when we talk about that top section, communication, without communication, you have no rescue. There's nothing happening. You're on your own. So obviously the first one's call 911. And working with the CHP, they even said the same thing. You see that I have the CHP's aviation dispatch number. They have different areas that cover, so that's why it's blank. But the guys, we have the phone number available for our crews. But they said call 911 first before you call us and get EMS on the way, and then call our dispatch. And when we call the dispatch, their office is right in the front. It's the front lobby of their dispatch office. The phone call goes right to them. She dispatches right to the crew, whether they're in the ready room or they're already in the air. And then you want to have your utility dispatch or your control center phone number too. So if you're working on a clearance or something and something goes south, or the line comes hot for any reason, or you need the line de-energized, you want to make sure that you have that phone number available, as well as if you know you're a contractor working on a certain customer's property and they have an inspector, you're working under an inspector. Usually they're the ones holding the clearance. They'll go ahead and you want to make sure you have their number to be able to communicate that to them too. And then obviously your general foreman or supervisor, you can get that, but it's also listed in order, right? Call 911 first and work your way down the list. You know, once you have help coming to your fallen brother or sister, then you can start notifying leadership of what's going on. I also have an area there for our radio frequency, and I think this is something that's really important, especially if you're going to have a helicopter come in, because giving a pilot, you know, us as linemen use totally different hand signals than you know, rescue helicopters. A lot of them aren't, you know, long line specialists that do the power line work that we do. So it's making sure that you have 100% communication with those guys at all times. I put it on here. I'm working on making banners probably half the size of this, that get rolled up and put in a tube on our fly baskets. So all they have to do is pull that banner out. It'll have the radio frequency and our PL tone. Large numbers, and then they just stake it down or put rocks on it or whatever, so that the pilot, when he gets overhead, he can see what frequency and know what he needs to do. He can tell you what he needs you to do or where you need to move. You have communication while you're working with them. Next one was access. How did we get here? We covered a little bit about that, but you want to you're in that section. You're gonna want to, if we hiked in, we hiked in. Hey, we went through three gates. Write those things down. Write whatever your route was to get in. We took Smith Avenue and turned right on Adams or whatever. Detail out how you got in, so that when it's time to go down, like I said in the beginning, we don't know how people are going to react in an emergency. You never know. Ken might run away, once he sees that his brother got hurt. I can't handle this. I'm out of here. You want to make sure that you write that down, and then in California we've been doing it, and I know there's probably a lot of people out there that do it. Cone your way in, man. When you turn a corner, drop a cone. That way all you have to do is say, hey, we left Highway 99 at Pearson Road. Follow the cones. They can't get lost unless somebody's out there moving your cones. Next one's a position or your location. You want to be very detailed in where we are, not only geographically, but on the system that we're working, right? So if we do end up calling the dispatch control center for any reason, that we're able to identify our location, our physical location on their system. So if we need to be isolated from any electricity, they know what they need to do via SCADA or however, sending troublemen out really quick, or even telling us if we have able bodies to go out and do some switching really quick to get that section cleared, so that we can either do our rescue or get somebody off the line. So that's important. The other one was our GPS coordinates. Obviously, if we're calling a helicopter out, they're gonna probably respond a little better to a GPS coordinate than they are a street address. If we have a street address as well, put that in there. Nearest hospital, I really want to talk about that a little bit, but I'll jump down to making sure that you have your circuit for your control center. What circuit you're on, what structure you're on, where your nearest source side devices are. You need to know all that stuff ahead of time, and obviously if you're on a clearance, you would have that. But getting into the hospital, I've been planning doing safety plans for projects for a while now, and until recently really started looking into are we sending the people to the right place? Are we getting them to a place that's actually going to be helpful for them? A lot of times, if somebody's getting electrocuted, they're going to need to go to a trauma center that has the capabilities to take care of them. And if we're going to a trauma level 3 or below, you're going to be hurting pretty bad, And a lot of times we rely on EMS. They know that. They know where to take people. But sometimes it's us. Sometimes it's us throwing, somebody in a truck and taking them to the job site or taking them to the hospital. And we need to make sure that we're taking them in the right direction. If we're utilizing the helicopter to get us to the nearest airport to the hospital, are we going to the right direction? Are we going to the right airport that's going to have a trauma center in the area that's going to be able to take care of them? And so I wanted to just cover a few things. This can be found. This is a document that can be found if you just Google field trauma guidelines. But I think it's very important to cover or to at least know about some of the things on this sheet. The red area up top, the red criteria. Those items there, if your injured employee falls under any of those items, you're going to want to get them to the highest level trauma center possible. So the penetrating injuries to the head, neck, torso. You got suspected spinal injuries. Any kind of fall that we have from the heights that we're working, you're possibly going to have that. Crushed, dislodged, mangled, or extremities. Active bleeding, amputation. You want to get somebody to a higher level trauma center. on the right column there, that's looking at vitals. I don't think any of our linemen, unless they have military medic experience, or they've been medic before of some sort, the vitals thing really doesn't apply. But if you look at that lower section, anything in that lower section, if it falls under that, you can go to a lower level trauma center, unless something in the red applies. So if you see at the bottom of that yellow section there, it talks about falls greater than 10 feet. Well, if we're falling, we're working at 60 plus feet sometimes. If we're making a fall like that, obviously you're like thinking, oh, well, when I want to go to? Well, yes, if you're falling from 60 feet, you're going to have one of those items in the red area. You're going to be going to a higher level trauma center. So here at International Line Builders, we utilize an app called SiteDocs, and it's an online, a depository for our forms. And in here we have, this is where our daily crew tailboard is housed. So every day a new form is done by each foreman, and this is where they fill out their emergency action plan, they fill out their hazard assessment. It's all done in here, and it's all kept within the cloud through this app. But the really cool feature about this, if you see there under shortcuts, the bottom line there, emergency locations nearby. If you click on that, it gives you a list of options to pick from. I like that it has the poison control center nearest to you. That's a good one. But the top one there, if you click on hospitals, it'll take you to, and it tells me, let's use Google Maps. So you go to Google Maps, right? And from here, okay, it gives me hospitals, right? Which is what I thought was good. You can work with that, right? But how do we know which hospital to take them to? That's going to have the level of trauma that we need. So I'm talking if we're the ones taking somebody to the hospital, right? So I would go up here to the top and search level 1 trauma center. And then it goes here. Actually, it worked that time. That's amazing. Probably because I spelled it wrong. So now it tells you to take to do a Google search instead, right? So you can obviously just go and do a Google search instead. But this is how this one's taking me. So it kind of identifies where you are, right, in your geographic location. It's for some reason it's telling me I'm in North Carolina right now. But if you go down and you look for right there, American Trauma Society. If you click on that one and go down, you'll see a link right here. Click here for the list of ACS verified trauma centers. This is such a cool site because here it lists everything in your area, and it actually tells you level 2 trauma center, level 2 trauma center, level 3 trauma center, right? But then you can go to filter and sort and refine it, right? So let's say, let's fix this, California or South Carolina, right? South Carolina. Bam. Okay, now we have a list. Okay, this is close to our area here. Now we can figure out where we need to go. Well, Prism Health in Greenville, that's a little far away. But what's close to us? And it'll pop up, I believe, right? Where's that one at? Jeremy, what was that? Richland? Right there, Prisma Health, Richland. It's a level 1 trauma center, right? So now we know the address, we know it, and so in our pre-planning for our job that day, we can identify a level 1 trauma center, and then we know, okay, if we have something seriously bad happen, we're going this way, but you know, we can kind of identify, okay, level 2 is over here. So now we know if we need to go to level 2, we know where it is. If we need to go to level 1, here it is. I have the links. So my email address is at the end of this. Email me if you want any of the links and stuff, and I'll send it right out to you for these things and for some of the documents that I'm sharing. But I think it's really important that we understand how our employee, where we're going to take him. not just to any hospital, because not just any hospital is going to be able to provide the best care for that employee. So the last one, obviously the last E was exercise or practice, right? The master here says, practice makes perfect. After a long time of practicing, our work will become natural, skillful, swift, and steady. That's coming from the master. So I truly believe that. The more that we practice our emergency action plans, the more that we practice pull top rescue, the more that we practice tower rescue, first aid, CPR, the better we are going to be able to respond when something happens. Once a year doing pull top rescue is not enough, in my opinion. And so what I'm trying to do in Northern California is we do annual pull top rescue with our guys, right? Where each guy gets up there. But what I'm starting to do is going and doing spot checks, taking the whole crew out and doing a rescue with the whole crew. Everybody's there, everybody can see. Everybody knows how to do a 2-minute pull top rescue, right? But getting them in there and the step-by-step, hey, Mike's not down, he's going to go call 911 and head out to make sure that they can get in. And then take the whole crew through the rescue process. Same with your tower rescue. There's a lot of rescue equipment, rappelling equipment, whatever devices you use that you need to play with a lot to get really, really good at them. And so, once a year refreshers is just not going to cut it. So practicing those things so that when it is needed, there's no hiccup, there's no mistake. We can get it done. The other big one was practicing to use this thing and getting good with it. And not just the foreman. Everybody on the crew needs to know how to use this, because if the foreman goes down or somebody else goes down and the foreman hands you this, you need to make sure that you understand how to operate it. So we're starting to do a lot of training with these to ensure that our guys are good with it. The other thing I wanted to talk about was being prepared, right? So this is essentially what every foreman has. Every truck has every crew truck has a trauma kit, as well as the foreman's truck has a trauma kit. Every foreman has an AED, and then we keep the emergency action placards there. And I've instructed them to pull them out of the truck and put them on the hood of the truck, so there's no question as to where they are. They're there. You can see them. You just grab them and go. So I want to just run through a couple scenarios and kind of just talk my way through what it would look like. So there's all kinds of scenarios, different scenarios. These are some that are near my house there. I live in rice country in Northern California. Usually this is prior to rice time, so they're rotting the fields right now. But usually when it's rice season, that's covered in water. We're getting out there with helicopters. We are not disturbing the product that they have in growing out in the ground, right? So that's something to take into consideration. Obviously, if somebody gets hurt, I think the farmer's going to be, have to accept the fact that you've walked in on some of their stuff. But that field there, when it's full of water, you're not getting out if you drive something in it. So really thinking about, hey, if somebody goes down, we're working on the 500, whether energized, de-energized, and somebody gets hurt, it's going to be something pretty significant. How are we getting our guy out of there? I'm sorry, guy or girl out of there. Last year, there in Northern California, they had a crew working, another contractor working on the 500 had a contact with induction, and she ended up falling into her harness, and they ended up having to resuscitate her. But their emergency action plan worked out for her. They got her down with the helicopter and got her out with the helicopter. Next job site, a little further up in the mountains from where I'm at, but we took a lane, parked off the side here, and hiked in to our job location, which is up there. So taking that into consideration, we've already talked about the hiking. I've talked a lot about hiking. Makes me want to go hike. But how did we get there, and what's going to get in our rescue's way? Getting our guy out of there. What kind of snags are there? We need to make sure that the people who are coming are able to get to our employee and get them out. The last one here is this one. This one's one of my favorite ones because it really makes you think about it. That is a driveway to that ranch, that Walnut Ranch right there. And that's a AT&T little feeder building there. That's fed by that primary riser. And so what if we're working on that pole alone, right? We're not changing any strain. We're not doing anything with that conductor. We don't have to have a railroad spotter, right? It's not needed. And something goes down where an employee gets hurt. What do we need to take into consideration? So there's a lot happening there. Obviously, you guys see the railroad tracks and that it doesn't have any crossings, right? So that's probably already being identified in your JHA, right, as a hazard. But when we think about our emergency action plan, we talk about it. How are we getting our person out of there? So you see there's a main line. The main line's the one, the track furthest away. The siding is on this side. I drive past this a lot, and a lot of times that farmer's property is blocked by a train that's waiting for another train to pass by. So here we are, we have an incident. It's clear for right now, but we call EMS, and by the time we've called EMS, a train pulls into that siding and blocks our exit. So we need to think through that, right? So there's a sign there with a stop sign. There's a railroad phone number right there. Maybe calling them, getting them on the phone, say, hey, we have an emergency here at this crossing. We need the trains to stop so that we have access with EMS. Or, hey, I don't even want to take a chance with it. I'm calling for a flagger from the railroad to stand by just in case. It's something to think about. So, and that's it. I just wanted to make sure that we talk about this and that's highlighted. It's very important that we don't think about something happening. We do the same work every day, and we get kind of Groundhog Day-ish sometimes in some of the big projects you're on. But when it comes to an emergency action plan, that we can't have that mentality. We have to think about it. We have to plan for it because we never know when that day is going to come. It happened to us. We thought we were prepared, and it went south for us. And so I just want to say thank you. Thank you to International Line Builders for getting me out here to South Carolina to be able to film this webinar and share it with everybody. Thank you for Bierer Meters for hosting this and providing the platform for us to be able to do this. I get the word out about all these different safety topics. I think it's very important. My email address is there. Send me any questions you may have. Any requests if you want any of the links that I shared. I might even be able to make them available for Brent to be able to put on some of the literature or something. So anyway, thank you so much.